I can forgive Salasya for refusing to read this document and assuming Sifuna signed it. But I cannot forgive Professor Ojienda. Because Professor, you are a lawyer. I wish those things were done, Trevor, when this gentleman was here, so that even we who are his friends and colleagues can put those questions to him and tell him, Bona Boss, can you explain these things?
Do Kenyans deserve an apology? Because yesterday you seemed to be apologizing.
Absolutely. You see, for me, as I have described, as I've explained, I believe that there are things that we as leaders have said and done in the past, on the floor of the House, in our conduct in public and in private, that has led us to this point where Kenyans don't feel that we are part of them, that we are this elite group who doesn't care about what happens to the ordinary folk. So I feel that this is personal. As Sifuna, many people might see it differently, but I feel like as a leadership, we have fallen short, and we owe an apology to the public that there are things that we have said and done that cast us in very bad light, that did not meet the threshold in chapter 6, where we did not demonstrate the respect expected for the people who elected us. That is why I offered an apology, and it was a sincere apology on behalf of the entire political class, at least those who subscribe to my point of view and my way of thinking, because at the end of the day, we need to repair this society. This society is in a terrible place. The anger that we see and we feel out there is not healthy, by the way. It is not healthy that we can stay in a state of anger for all that time. So we need to start speaking and listening to each other to try and repair the relationship between the leadership and the public.
Okay. Sifuna, are you against the broad-based government?
Trevor, I'll repeat what I said yesterday, that there is nothing like a broad-based government. And when I said those words, I saw some people on Twitter tagging me saying, oh, but Sifuna, you signed a document, including somebody who's calling themselves a presidential candidate. And I just want to tell Kenyans. You mind naming that? He knows himself. There's somebody running around Western Kenya calling himself a presidential candidate. And I am happy that everybody who has declared that they are running for president is being examined on his past, his conduct, his words, and so on and so forth. But this one has no history. So I just want to encourage Kenyans to encourage that presidential candidate to read, to develop a culture of reading. So this MOU, I've brought you a copy of this MOU because it has been 2 months since this document was signed, and a lot of things have been said about what this document is and what it is not. This document does not establish a government. In fact, the first time that the president used these words called broad-based was way back in July. The first time members of ODM joined government was way back in July. It was not pursuant to this document. You know, so there is no government called broad-based government. The government in power is a Kenya Kwanza government led by President Uhuru Kenyatta, not Uhuru Kenyatta, William Ruto. So when you speak about this thing called broad-based, me personally, I don't consider the government of Kenya Kwanza a broad-based government. It is the President Ruto's government. So there are a few things I wanted to address, Trevor. As I've told you, this document did not form a government. Number two, Sifuna did not sign this document. Sifuna did not sign this document. If you look at the signature page of this document, it has 2 names, President William Ruto and the Right Honorable Raila Odinga. Because I know this document inside out, I was there when it was being prepared. We were very tempted, Trevor. One of the things, one of the provisions of this document, on page 1, it says that this is not a coalition document. This document does not form a coalition between UDA and ODM. I was very tempted to include something that I see. Sometimes when you download a document online, you will see a watermark is put there saying, this is not a receipt. I wanted to put that watermark on every page to say, this is not a coalition agreement. Because as I spoke at KICC, I knew that we were getting ourselves into a perception war, that sometimes people are not interested in the details. But if you read this document and what it provides, it does not establish a government. Government was established in August during the elections in 2022, and the president himself has confirmed to the country that pursuant to, after what happened in June with the protest, he reached out to Raila Odinga to help stabilize his government for the intervening period. And these are things that are there and they are clear. Number two, I saw a report from the Standard attributing certain things to this MOU. This MOU is not what gave Raila influence in this country. Raila Odinga has been a presidential candidate by many accounts. He has won some of those elections. He's a leader of the opposition. He has been in politics for a long time. He has had influence across the country for all these years, and across Africa. He's a very well-respected statesman. It was not pursuant to this MOU that Raila now has influence. This MOU is not what made Dr. Oburu Odinga the senator for Siaya. The senator for Siaya was determined in the elections in 2022. Forget what the Standard is claiming. This MOU is not what made Winnie Odinga the Yala member of parliament. By the time we were going to elect Yala members of parliament, it was way back in 2022, 2023. This MOU did not exist. And Trevor, that is why we continue to plead with people. Let us develop a culture of knowing things before we speak about them. As I have said in public, my job really is to make sure that we stay the course. So for as long as this MOU did not establish a government, I am not in that government. I am not in that government. So I respectfully disagree with the sentiments that Oburu expressed there. And I have had occasion, because he's a colleague in the Senate, to sit down with him and understand. Even him, if you see that clip that you played, he was accusing Orengo of anger, but he was speaking with anger. So I asked him, what was the problem? And he explained to me that there were some issues. I think there was a meeting that Orengo attended in Bondo, and he said certain things that infuriated infuriated Oburu, and we have sat down as a leadership of the party to be able to resolve those issues, because it creates a lot of confusion, especially to us, the younger members of the party, when senior officials of the party fight in public. Allow me to say that the comments on the conduct of our CSs. Trevor, if you ask these three senators, the main accusation against former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, why was Gachagua impeached? Why was Gachagua impeached? Because he was holding a national office but forgot that he was the Deputy President for all of us. He was not the Deputy President for Central Kenya. But every pronouncement, every time he stood in public, every time he appeared in public, he appeared only to be advancing the interest of his region and his people. That is the reason why we impeached Rigathi Gachagua. So you cannot have similar conduct from members of my party who have joined government. That every time we see you in public, you are only speaking in terms of the so-called development that has come to your people. You understand? And we wove into this MOU. Hey, I'm telling you, people need to give me time to read this thing word for word for them. We wove into this MOU a provision here where the two leaders, President Ruto and Raila Odinga, will respect the identity and integrity of the political parties who signed this document. So when Governor Wanga speaks, and I want to address the comment that he made about Governor Wanga. First of all, it is fair for Governor Wanga to demand answers from the government on the killing of Ongondowere, because it is a responsibility of government to protect life and limb. Number two, when she speaks and she says this region, members of the public in this region belong to ODM or have supported ODM, she's defending this MOU, because this MOU requires that you protect the integrity and respect the identity and integrity of these political parties. What has happened is that under the guise of these so-called development tours, and you know, everybody can see that it is politics at play, these development tours are meant to win political support for UDA in Nyanza. And that is the reason why Governor Wanga was saying, you must respect us in accordance with the MOU that you signed. So Trevor, for me, I am very clear in my mind. I am not a member of any government called broad-based. I don't know where it exists. The MOU that we signed does not establish any such government, you know. So we are very clear in our minds as a leadership of ODM. And by the way, ODM as a party, we have allowed everybody to express themselves freely. In fact, there was a memo that came from Raila Odinga's office saying the only thing that is required when we have these opposing views is respect for each other. That you don't go after each other in a manner that is disrespectful, but we are allowed to have and hold opinions that are different from each other.
Increasing perception that you're sabotaging this broad-based arrangement now that you don't want to call it a government.
I don't know how I'm sabotaging, but context is important, Trevor.
Yeah.
I was trying to persuade my brother to provide context, not to ask for video. To provide context for the words that came from the party chairperson, the Honorable Gladys Wanga. Number one, she referred to a previous incident. Just a few weeks before this incident, there was another burial there in Homa Bay. And some youths who are sponsored and dressed in UDA colors came to that particular funeral and misbehaved. That is the context within which she spoke. I am personally very averse to going to these burials where people come dressed in political colors. But you'll forgive us on Friday because it was Ongondo Were's wish that he be buried in ODM colors. So if you see ODM there, don't say, oh, Sifuna said we should not dress like that. But yesterday at the memorial, both the governor of Homa Bay and the senator of Homa Bay invited every person from every color to come to mourn this great leader, and we gave assurances that for as long as we all respect the decorum, we expect to have a peaceful send-off for the Honorable Ongondo Were. Now, secondly, Trevor, I can forgive Salasya for refusing to read this document and assuming Sifuna signed it. But I cannot forgive Professor Ojienda. Because, Professor, you are a lawyer. When you see people running away from a document, and that's the reason I have brought this thing here, because there's been a lot of nonsense being said about the contents of this document. Luckily for us, all of us here, we are lawyers. They know about the parole evidence rule, that once the contents of an agreement have been reduced into a document, you do not introduce oral evidence to explain its contents because the document will speak for itself. The people who are supporters of this animal, called broad-based, are running away from the contents of the document. That is why the president gets annoyed with me when I remind him what the document says. So when you see Ojienda coming and telling us, oh, there is the document, then there is a philosophy. Read the document. This document is not what brought the chairperson of the former chairperson of ODM into government. As I've said, Trevor, that so-called broad-based animal started existing in Ruto's mind before this document was signed. This document was signed on 7th of February 2025. By that time, Mbadi, Joho, and the others were already in cabinet. This document is not the reason why they are there. And if you want to understand the discussions that went prior, the philosophy is captured here, Ojienda, that we understand that a nation will not develop without reinforcing democratic governance and the rule of law. And I wish, Trevor, you brought to me on this show alone so that I can explain to you the contents of this document so that people like Ojienda don't introduce things that are not there. You are a professor of law. Please don't behave like Salasya. Read the document so that you understand and explain to your people what it says. A nation will not develop without reinforcing democratic governance and the rule of law. My brother, democratic governance is such that you cannot go after the BBC for just telling you that this is what happened. Why are you arresting young people for producing a film about events that we all saw? I was there in Parliament. Those things happened. The BBC is not fabricating anything. And in fact, all your media houses, including Citizen TV, covered these events. So why are you arresting people for just expressing themselves? That is running contrary to this document.
Okay. So you're confirming that ODM will field a presidential candidate? I
am saying this political party called ODM exists for only one sole purpose. We are not like Third Way Alliance, which exists to go to court. We exist to compete for political power. So ODM has not given that up. In 2027, we will field candidates for all positions. Lastly, on this MOU, when Trevor, we are told that there was a discussion on the issues. These are the issues. We spoke about devolution. For us to get the leader of UDA to sign this document, in fact, when we were preparing this document was prepared in my office in KICC. So I know the document. Others are asking me, oh, but Sifuna, why were you there? As SG of ODM, I don't speak for myself. I am not present in these events to represent Sifuna. As you know, we had a meeting of the Central Committee that morning to ratify this document. And I went there to confirm to the country that the committee, that is the job of SG, that the committee has looked at this document and we have endorsed it. Because these are the issues that ODM believes in. The first issue there, it is to implement priority issues that came out of NADCO, including the cost of living, youth unemployment. We have talked about devolution, which he speaks about. It talks about defending against any clawback on devolved functions. When you see Raila Odinga saying the president should not be building markets, it is a devolved function. This is what this document speaks about. Devolving all funds allocated to devolved functions. When you see Raila saying release money meant for roads, it is pursuant to this agreement. When he says increase budgetary allocation, when I stand up in during the burial of George Odwor and I say you agreed to increase budgetary allocation to counties to 450 billion Kenya shillings, not 405.
Yeah.
The president gets annoyed and threatens to call founder members of ODM to discipline the SG of ODM. Because it is my responsibility. Ojienda will not do this. I am the person who is responsible for this marking scheme. Timely and predictable disbursement of devolved funds. Yeah. This is something we fight over. Ojienda is talking about 70 billion gone to you to where? Even as we speak today, Trevor, counties have not received money since February, since this agreement was signed. So when we remind these people of what the document is, that is why you see they run away. Okay. They run away because they are failing. I have given them an E out of these issues, and I could go on and on. Out of these issues, there is nothing they have done. I think the only thing no, that's what I'm saying. My job, it is 2 months later, Hillary, my job as SG, I have the marking scheme. I can show you all these issues here, none of which you have done. I think the only one you have tried is opportunities in public appointments, and I think we are in the first budget cycle. We want to see equitable budgetary resource allocation in this current budget. So, Trevor, when you say I am sabotaging, by reminding us of our own commitments, you are being unfair. Because this is a document I know by heart. I was there when it was being prepared. As I've told you, it was done in my office, you know. So the people who are jittery, when Sifuna reminds us of our obligations, of the things that we promised to do, are the ones sabotaging this government.
Okay.
They are not me. Lastly, a vote is an individual decision. Tom Ojienda will not vote for Sifuna. I will be given a ballot, you will be given a ballot. You can see he's already wearing UDA colors. He's already wearing UDA colors. So he has made a decision that is going to support William Ruto for re-election. I do not begrudge you, Ojienda. That is your personal decision. Sifuna, Edwin Watenya. I can give my ID number. Should I? Will not be voting for William Ruto in 2027. He should also respect my decision.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.